Hi, I'm Dr. Vonda Wright, and this is Hot for Your Health. Sugar and spice and everything nice. That's what my mom told me little girls were made of when I was growing up. But what she didn't tell me is that having too much sugar in my life is nothing nice at all. In this episode of Hot for Your Health, our expert diabetes panel explains to you the role of sugar in diabetes and how you can prevent and control the ravages of this devastating disease. This is a really important episode if you or any of your family members have diabetes.
Thank you guys so much for joining our session today. My name is Julie Heverly. I am the Executive Director for the American Diabetes Association of Pittsburgh. And I have a lot of reasons for being so passionate about the ADA's mission, which I'll share with you in a bit. But I'm guessing that since you're here, you probably also have some interest or some connection to diabetes. So how many of you know somebody who has diabetes? Okay, that's everybody. When I started with the ADA in 2006, it was usually about half the room. There's almost nowhere I go now where not every single hand goes up. Just because we're sort of an informal group, are you guys healthcare providers, or are you just women with loved ones who want to live healthier lives? Latter? That's great. That's okay. All right. Anything you can pick up? That's fantastic. Well, diabetes is America's fastest growing disease. There are currently, the new statistics are 29 million Americans who are living with it. That is a huge and staggering number, but what is even more considering are the 86 million Americans who are pre-diabetic, who are borderline, who are basically making those decisions every day that will determine whether or not they're going to become a diabetic. And that's really scary for me as somebody who is dealing with this every day, both on a personal level and a professional level. But it's scary across the board. It's scary for our loved ones, for our business community, and for our social communities. How many of you know a child who was born after the year 2000? So they'd be, 14 now? Okay. So the current trajectory that we're on right now in our country is that 1 in 3 of those children will be impacted by diabetes in their lifetime. And for our friends who are African American and Latino, it's 1 in 2. And that is why we have to do something about this. And that's why this conference today is so wonderful. Diabetes is a disease that is talked about a lot. I mean, I'm sure every TV show has talked about it at some point in time, even Oprah. And there's a lot of confusion around diabetes, even though we're talking about it a lot. And there are reasons, there are good reasons for that confusion. I mean, there's multiple types of diabetes. There's type 1, formerly known as juvenile diabetes. There's type 2, there's LADA, there's gestational, there's pre. I mean, my head's already spinning, and I spend all day with this. And there's a lot of different reasons people get diabetes. You know, is it an autoimmune condition? Is it poor food choices and lack of exercise? Is it genetic? There are components of all of that in this whole diabetes realm. And then there's a lot of misconceptions. But I'm here to set the record straight. Currently, there is no cure for diabetes. We can make a lot of really good choices, and we can manage it really well if it's type 2. And if it's type 1, you can manage it really, really well. But there is no cure for diabetes. If you have it, it doesn't go away. So how many of you feel like you have a good understanding of what diabetes is, just based on what we hear in pop culture? Well, I would hope you do, our dietitian in the room. So diabetes, simply put, and Linda will talk about this in more detail, but it's when the body either doesn't produce insulin or it doesn't properly use insulin. So what's that matter? Well, insulin is the hormone that takes every morsel of food and every drop of fluid that you consume and turns it into the energy that you need to walk, to sit here and absorb what I'm telling you, to play, to laugh, to live. So it's a pretty critical component of life. And Linda and Sanjeev are going to talk a lot more about what it means and what the perils are of being too sweet inside. But as you listen to their message today, I want you to think about a few things. In the hour that we're together, this little group of ours that's talking about diabetes, 218 people will be diagnosed with type 2 in this hour. 26 people will die from diabetes complications. 6 people will have kidney failure. 8 people will lose a limb. And in this hour, diabetes will cost the United States $18 million in the next hour. So, as the American Diabetes Association, we come out and we share these statistics, which are overwhelming and sometimes leave people with the, well, what are we supposed to do about that? The ADA has a critical, huge, but simple mission. Our goal is to prevent and cure diabetes. I would hope that that's what you would want from us, but the second step is the even more important part, and that's to improve the lives of people who are living with this disease until we find that cure. As an organization, it's critical to us that we are trying to align ourselves with the critical components of what that mission means. And for us, that's setting the medical standards to make sure that when you go see a dietitian, they understand the different types of diabetes and know how to educate people so that they're being treated correctly. We advocate for the rights of people who are affected by diabetes, and you may not think that in a metropolitan area like Pittsburgh that matters, but I will tell you in the state of Pennsylvania, there is legislation at the state level that we're trying to pass because children in rural areas are still being discriminated against, that they can't go to the same schools as their brothers and sisters and neighbors because we're not allowing people to be trained on how to recognize diabetic highs and lows and help those children without a nurse in being present. So there are still things that we need to do right here in Pittsburgh and in Pennsylvania. We also provide education to our communities. That's one of the most important things we do. We establish diabetes education programs, and there's a lot of them in our area, which is wonderful. And then we do research, which you would also hope that we do. And it's really exciting to me. We raise about $1 million in this market from our events and our programs, but the ADA funnels $3 million back into the city of Pittsburgh for research, because we have some of the most impressive research labs and systems happening in our system or in our city. And so I'm really proud that we have such a great return rate and that we're working together with the city and our wonderful research institutions. As I mentioned at the beginning, I do have a lot of connections to diabetes. In 2004, my father-in-law lost his limb, lost his lower leg to complications. In 2009, my father passed away from a fatal stroke as a complication of his type 2. In college, when I was at Washington and Jefferson, I was diagnosed with type 1, and I, 2 years ago, gave birth to a beautiful baby girl, and I am bound and determined that diabetes will not affect her life as much as it already has, because clearly having a mommy with type 1 is always, what's that? And why are you giving yourself shots? And one of her first words was blood sugar. She came up to my meter and was like, "Mommy's blood sugar." And I was like, "Yes, it is." And that's frightening that you know that. And she calls my insulin pump Buddy because we had to give it a name because it's so much a part of our lives. So diabetes is part of my life. It's part of all of our lives, whether we recognize it on a regular basis or not. And I love that the American Diabetes Association's mission, not our mission, our vision, is to create a world that is free of diabetes and its complications and its burdens. Those burdens of checking your blood sugar 8 to 10 times a day, giving yourself shots, having to count every carb that you put into your mouth. That's our vision. And we hope that you guys will listen to our speakers today, and you'll, when Vonda said this morning that 70% of the choices we make affect our health, that was amazing and empowering news to me. And I think that diabetes is so connected to that 70%. I just want to encourage and empower all of you to make those choices. The ADA does offer programs that encourage physical wellness and education and movement in our community. We actually have an expo that is not exactly like today, but it'll be at the Convention Center on Saturday and provides tons of information and screenings. And so you guys have been here today, but maybe you encourage somebody that you know who is either facing diabetes or living with diabetes to come out and learn how to manage and prevent diabetes. Being here is a step. Going to the expo is a step. Knowledge is powerful, and if we're making better choices and we're taking the time to do the things that we need to do, we can dramatically impact what our future looks like. And that's our goal, is to dramatically decrease those cases of diabetes and to help the people who have already been diagnosed live their best life.
The federal health insurance marketplace is now open. That means you're free to shop for the health plan that's right for you. UPMC Health Plan has some of the most affordable plans on the marketplace. And they all give you full in-network access to UPMC, plus other doctors and hospitals in your community. Visit upmchealthplan.com or call 1-855-297-UPMC to learn why so many people have chosen UPMC Health Plan. Enroll today.
I have been kind of focusing on diabetes for about 5 years, but my expertise is actually in the formulation and development of nutritional supplements, okay? And, but in that nutritional supplement world, dietary supplement world, there is very much in nutrition, right? Because that's the root of all of this, right? And so I've spent a tremendous amount of time looking at diabetes, but really looking at diabetes from obesity, from weight management, from diabesity, all of these sort of things. And so here's my thing, right? I think that diabetes, those numbers are tremendously low. I think there is a lot more individuals that have a degree of diabetes. Anyone that is not at their optimal weight has a degree of diabetes. Because here's how I look at this, right? Is that I believe that the reason why individuals are overweight is because they do not have the ability to metabolize and break down sugar properly, carbohydrates. Okay, right? And I believe that you do not gain weight and become overweight and then get diabetes. I believe that first you get diabetes and then you gain weight. Okay, so here's the thing: is that my mother has diabetes. Right, 71 years old. She's not very mobile. She's Indian. She loves her chai. She loves her rotli. She loves all, and we fight. And we fought a few times, let me tell you, okay, right? And I've got her off of her insulin. I have got her on her insulin. I've got her off of her insulin. Right now, she's in Arizona. They just moved here, and she's in mommy boot camp, and she hates it, right? Because she knows what's coming. And what's coming is huge dietary changes and exercise changes, right? And so here's my whole thing in all this, right, is that this whole process is a 3-element thing for me. The first thing is food addiction. The second is the insulin issue, okay, right? And then the third thing is inflammation, okay? These 3 things create a cycle, and they create such a vortex that it's really hard to break from it, okay? The first thing that we're talking about is food addiction. See, if anyone does not consider food a drug, you need to look as food as a drug. A drug is defined as something that you would build tolerance and you have withdrawal symptoms. Well, that's what food does. And specifically, and I think that if you've read a lot about this, the sugar, salt, and fat are those main kind of bliss. My dad's actually a food scientist. He formulated foods. He was part of the problem, not the solution, I think. Okay, right? I would never tell him that. Please don't record this. And so he would have these graphs when we were kids looking at what are these bliss points of certain things. And the major bliss point that he had was what? Sugar. Okay? And so there is a certain level of sugar that your body will take, and it will send the neural response that says, you know what, this is a good thing. This is pleasure. Right? And because this is pleasure, we want more. Because you know what? The body has this wonderful thing to do. It wants to live. It wants to do 2 things, right? It wants to live and it wants to procreate. That's the 2 main things that the body is kind of set up to do, right? And so one of the pleasurable things and one of the survivable things is taking in foods that have a high amount of calories, right? Calories have the nutrient density, okay, right? And so we learn very early to take in foods that have this high calorie density, like mother's milk, right? And so from very early on, we realize that sweet things are good. It reinforces it, and it reinforces it, and we constantly reinforce it, right? And it creates this brain space. And because it creates this brain space, we want more of it. But the issue is just like Dr. Linda said, is that when we were children, and we were taking in mother's milk, the great thing about that was it had all of this great macronutrient profile. And the body had the ability to know how much protein and carbs and fat. But unfortunately, that kind of went away. It went away with Lucky Charms, and it went away with Hot Pockets, and it went away with Big Gulps and things like that, in which the body didn't realize, like Dr. Linda was saying, is that I didn't know that you were going to literally take one stalk of cane sugar and squeeze it all into a 16-ounce Big Gulp and drink it. Right? Because if you think about it, when we were earlier in the 1900s, you were consuming 16 pounds of sugar a year. Right? The body could handle 16 pounds of sugar. Don't worry, sugar's not that bad. It's just that it's bad when you overconsume it. And so I could take in 16 pounds. We're cool with that. But then all of a sudden in 2013, I lived for the past. No, 2013, we're consuming how much? 168 pounds of sugar. And so now, but our bodies weren't set up for that. And so now I got to do something with this sugar. So what do? I got to store it. Because just like Dr. Linda said, you're not moving around. We're not using it. And even if you were moving around and using it, that's a lot of sugar, right? And so now I got all of this sugar in the system. I've got all this fat in the system. I'm emitting all this inflammation. I'm screwing up my insulin, like Dr. Linda said. Well, now my insulin doesn't work as well anymore. I know the definition of diabetes is the fact that, listen, you know what? Your cells don't work properly, and your insulin's not potent enough. Okay? But I'm saying you take in that much food and that much carbs, everybody has that problem. I don't care how strong your beta cells are. I don't care how strong your pancreas is. I don't care how potent your insulin is. It's still not going to be enough. And so now we're stuck with this. And now all of a sudden I've got the insulin and it's not working properly. Because it's not working properly, I've got all of this sugar running around everywhere. Why do you think all of the complications that Dr. Linda said, they were all over the place? What do you think? Neuropathy, Alzheimer's, like poor liver function, like really? It goes all where? Well, sugar's in this bloodstream, it's going, the thing about the bloodstream is it goes everywhere in the body. And when there's this toxic nutrient, the most toxic nutrient, sugar, that has the ability to flow all around in the body, it starts destroying everything. And so that's why my mother has neuropathy. That's why my mom forgets things. That's why her skin doesn't look so good. That's why she's tired. That's the tough thing about diabetes, is diabetes sucks every little day out of your life every day. And it freaks you out because you don't know that when you wake up, what's the next thing going to be taken care of? That's what she's thinking. I'm thinking, my mom's probably thinking, when she wakes up, am my vision going to be even more blurry? And then is it going to be next blurry? And then am I going to go blind? That's what she's thinking. And that stresses you out, right? And it stresses everybody else out. That's why we fight. But so now I've got that issue. And now I've got this inflammation issue because I got all this sugar running around. And so everybody talks about the sugar. But what about the fat? What about the fact that now all of a sudden, now I don't have the ability to regulate my glucose, but now I actually have the inability to truly break down fat. See, because here's the thing. I have free-floating fatty acids, right, through the system. I have fat 3 areas, right? I have the free-floating fatty acids, I've got the triglycerides, and I've got the fat that's sitting in the cell, okay, right? And so I've got this free-floating fatty acid in there. And so, but the thing is that when I can't break down that fat properly, it begins to recirculate. When it begins to recirculate, and it spills over, where does it spill over? it spills over in three main areas. It spills over in the liver, lipotoxicity in the liver, in the pancreas, and in the skeletal muscle. What's the problem with that? The problem with that is my pancreas was supposed to be strong and healthy to secrete insulin, but now I'm breaking that down. I've got my liver that was supposed to be what? Breaking down the fat properly, but that's not working very well, and so now I've got more lipotoxicity there. And then I've got the main engine that actually burns this glucose, which is muscle, which is all broken down, right? And so when I take a look at it this way, this is why when I talk about the nutritional interventions that individuals should have, right? I say, listen, I'm not a low carb guy. I'm a get rid of your excess carb guy. Listen, eat protein, eat healthy fats, and eat your vegetables. Anything else, I don't care about your grains, I don't care about your breads, I don't care about your sugars. You don't need those excess carbohydrates. And so I want you to get all those carbohydrates from these. This isn't anything new. I hope that you weren't thinking that I was going to create some you should use green tea and resveratrol and a combination of quercetin and that will cure your diabetes. I don't have that for you because it is very much simple than that, right? What is simple is to make sure that your body, you are able, you treat your body. I was going really great, and then now I can't remember what I was going to say, okay, right? And this is what I was going to say, right? Is that you have to work with your system. You have to work with the system that the powers that be has given you, okay, right? And that's what you were saying earlier, is that, listen, there is no cure for diabetes. I get that, okay, right? But here's the cure. Work with your system. Okay? If your system doesn't have the ability to metabolize and break down sugar properly, then you know what? Take in less sugar. That's your cure. Okay? Right? And how you do this, in my opinion, is first start at the lowest level. Okay? Because everybody's different. Manisha, my sister, she can take on carbs and she doesn't have any issues. I take on carbs and I have issues. And so even me and my sis are different. Like she's the Javia upgrade, as Brad knows, like better looking. She got every good possible gene. And so here you are. How do you start low? Protein, healthy fats, carbohydrates from vegetables. It's as simple as that. Okay, right? On the exercise level, listen, you need to go build muscle mass. And women just don't do that. And I know a lot of times I've heard from women, I don't want to build muscle. I don't want to look all bulky and big. I've seen those women on TV and stuff. It ain't gonna happen. Okay? Don't fool you. You'll fool yourself. Oh, no, trust me, I gotta shoot something in your butt for you to actually get those huge muscles that you see on TV. Okay, right? That's not gonna happen. Building that muscle mass using resistance-based exercises is your ticket. Because you want to build all of those cells that have that ability to go take in those sugars that you know you're going to eat because you're going to get those carbs from healthy fats and from the vegetables. There's carbs in that, okay? I don't care, by the way, about these complex carbs and simple carbs and stuff. Carbs are carbs are carbs, okay? Don't tell me about your natural sugars and fruit and anything. It's all the same thing. But you need to have the ability to use that, metabolize and break that down, and that's what muscles actually provide you to do, right? So, in closing, right, is that my solutions are very simple. Listen, chromium and vanadium and bitter melon and all of these things that I usually formulate with, okay? Here's the thing that I'm trying to do, is that those nutrients have found in research to help to strengthen and feed the pancreas, to give greater insulin potency, okay, right? But it's not that much, okay? Even, like I hate to say it because it makes me look like that I won't sell a lot, right? But that's the fact, is it doesn't help as much as all of these other natural, healthy things that you don't have to buy in a bottle, okay? One of the things that I will recommend, though, is that everyone should get on a very comprehensive, complete, multivitamin, multi-mineral set. Because how I look at dietary supplements, it's a supplement to a diet, not a diet, okay? But what it does is it feeds all of those deficiencies that you are getting from the lack of nutrition because of either your habits or because of the fact that, and I won't jump into this, but because of the way that we grow and we process and we cook food and things like that, it really leaches those nutrients out of those foods. Even when you're eating organic and buying from Whole Foods and going to Trader Joe's, you're still not getting the nutrition from those foods. And specifically, the main things that you're not getting is minerals. Because do remember, your body can create some essential fatty acids to a certain degree. It can create some vitamins. But the one thing that it can't create, that it needs a lot of, are those minerals. Everybody talks about omega-3. Omega-3, make sure you get omega-3. Do remember, your body best absorbs a ratio of omega-3, 6, and 9. Okay, that's why you see most really good formulations will have all three of those essential fatty acids in one formula set. The next thing is the best way is from marine lipids. I mean, I know we use borage oil and primrose oil and all that sort of stuff, plant-based oil. The reason why we do it is because most people complain of the burping and the thing, like, oh, I don't like it. So we throw in some of those plant oils so it's not so bad. But if you can take it, just muscle through it and try to get those marine lipids, right? This is why Dr. Linda was talking about the rise in type 1 diabetes. I mean, type 1 diabetes is a rise in a genetic disorder? Like in this day and age? How does that happen? Here's how it happens. From years and years of type 2 diabetes. And unfortunately now it's gotten so bad, and we're doing it so well, meaning the type 2 diabetes, is that it only takes one generation. That's what's so crazy. There was a hospital in New York, Mount Sinai, that there was a doctor that found a 70% rise in type 1 diabetes. This is how scary it's getting. And it all starts because of this, easily accessible carbohydrate, thing, and there's so many factors, like I deal with a lot of the population that are older, and they'll say, Jeevers, I can't eat the vegetables. Right? Like my mom. Let's talk about my mom. I can't eat the vegetables. It upsets me. And although I'm like, no, you're wrong, I walk away and say, no, it's right. Because here's the thing. As she ages, she produces less digestive enzymes. Because she produces less digestive enzymes, that broccoli hurts. And so what does she do? She tends to eat things that don't hurt. Well, what doesn't hurt? Breads don't hurt. Rice doesn't hurt. Things are hard to chew as well. So what does she do? And so these are all of the things that you have to think about.
Thank you so much for joining me this week for this episode of Hot for Your Health. You are a powerful force in your own health, and I'm excited that you took the time this Thursday to learn more from our nation's authorities in health. I hope that you subscribe so that you don't miss one single episode. Join us next week for Hot for Your Health. And for more information, find it at womenshealthconversations.com.